Hello and welcome back to another classic round, the Burning Crusade Goldmaking video. Today we are talking about professions, and I want to talk to you guys about which professions might be the best for goldmaking in the Burning Crusade, as well as explain briefly why these professions are good for goldmaking. I will also make specific videos covering one profession per video for goldmaking, like for example a TBC Leatherworking goldmaking guide later down the road, where I can go into each profession more in depth. So this video will just be a quick overview of the professions because I wanted to let you guys know in advance which professions are good so you can start skilling them up before TBC comes out, so you are as prepared as possible. I will also talk about these professions in no particular order, so the order of which I mention them is completely random. At the end of the video I will also talk about which professions I would have on a main and which I would have on an alt. So with that being said, let's just jump straight into the action. Profession number 1 is leatherworking. Leatherworking has insane potential in TBC, even if they end up nerfing the drums. Because the future of drums is very uncertain and nobody really knows exactly what they will do about drums, let's forget about drums, and if they end up being profitable, it is just a bonus. So how would you make gold with leatherworking? Well, first of all, you have armor kits. Many different armor kits in fact, like not hide armor kit and heavy not hide armor kits, but also cleft hide leg armor and cobra hide leg armor, and then the next tiers which are nether cleft and nether cobra leg armor as well. These will be wanted by people constantly and will provide leatherworkers with a steady amount of sales on a daily basis. You also have some bigger crafts, as leatherworkers can craft several pre-raid best in slot armor pieces that are used by different classes. The actual upgrade of these items depend on how well geared you are from Classic, but if you're a new player, you might want entire sets of these pre-bis items, and leatherworkers should be able to make a lot of gold from these pre-bis items. One cool thing about this is that if you run dungeons for reputation while leveling, which I'll talk about in a different video, you can actually get the reputation needed to buy the recipes for these pre-bis items while leveling, and the faster you can craft and sell these, the more profit you will make. So by leveling fast and doing dungeons, you can actually make a lot of gold. You can also craft a lot of actual late game best in slot items as well through leatherworking, but many of these are drops from later raids such as Sunwell, so they're not really too relevant early on, but I bring it up because it shows that leatherworking will be a great gold making profession from the start, and it will stay profitable throughout the entire expansion. One last note for leatherworking is that you can turn not hide leather into heavy not hide leather, and the recipe for this is actually bought from a vendor with limited supply, so you might want to rush to one of these vendors or camp them to actually get the recipe. Because it is a limited supply item, you can expect some good returns on these crafts early on, and the earlier you get the recipe, the more profit you will make per craft. Heavy not hide leather is used in pretty much every leatherworking craft, and I'll even show you a picture of the recipe itself and from which vendors you can obtain them, so you can Google the exact location of the vendors if you're interested. Next up, let's talk about another profession that has a lot of the same, which is tailoring. Much like leatherworking, tailors can also craft some pre-bis items, as well as several high-end crafts later in the expansion. Tailors can also craft spell threads, which is basically the tailoring equivalent of leg armor from leatherworking, and is used by healers and casters, so they have some steady gold coming in on a daily basis through spell thread sales, plus some big boy gold when they sell crafted gear. On top of this, tailors can also utilize a daily cooldown or a 4-day cooldown craft, as tailors can basically craft 3 types of rare cloth in TBC: spell cloth, shadow cloth, and primal moon cloth. These do not share a cooldown, so every 4 days you can craft one of each. Additionally, at level 68 you can learn tailoring specialization, which lets you specialize in one of these 3 types, which gives you access to some really good bound on pickup crafted gear, as well as every time that you craft that cloth on cooldown, you will craft 2 instead of 1. Meaning if you're a spell cloth specialist, every 4 days you can craft 2 spell cloth and 1 of the other types, and vice versa if you specialize in any of the other types. Alright, let's break things up from gear crafting and talk about alchemy. Alchemy will be great in TBC for the same reasons as in Classic. You can craft consumables that people use for raiding. Parsing is a huge thing in Classic, and people are absolutely willing to spend gold on consumables, and things will not change in TBC. People have said we don't need as much consumables in TBC, but Blizzard have also said they are looking to make raiding content harder by giving us access to pre-nerf bosses, so I feel like consumables will be huge. We even get access to DPS potions in TBC, so there's a lot of possibilities here. One thing I personally learned in Classic was that by buying materials during the weekend, and crafting consumables and selling on raid days, I made about 50% profit every single week. In TBC, alchemists can also take advantage of transmuting just like in Classic, and you get access to specifically 3 big transmutes. You can turn green gems into meta gems, which is 2 of them, or you can turn primal elements into a primal might. Most people will probably go for the primal might, as that is used by gear crafting professions, such as blacksmithing, leatherworking and tailoring, to craft endgame gear. But if the profits on the transmute goes down, it is good to know other options actually exist. Next up is jewelcrafting. So this is actually one you can't start skilling up just yet, but I believe we will be able to once the pre-patch hits, so you might be able to skill this up before TBC comes out as well. For jewel crafting, the big money maker will be crafting and selling gems, specifically epic gems. You can also craft some previous items such as the Necklace of the Deep, and so on, but your main gold will come from gems. Additionally, you have a cooldown craft called Brilliant Glass, which lets you convert several green gems into a bag, and this bag can contain rare and epic gems, so it's a nice way of making some passive gold. Also, blacksmiths can make some overpowered armor and weapons as well, mostly in the later phases of TBC, but it's worth checking out if you're into gear crafting. It is worth noting that many of these epic crafts, for all professions, actually come from patterns that drop from raids, so if you're not intending to raid, blacksmithing might not be the profession for you. So with that being said, what would I choose on the main? Well, if I was going to raid, I would probably end up choosing leatherworking and jewel crafting, so I can fully utilize the recipes and designs you get from doing raids and dungeons, and also from high-end reputation. This way I could still cash in on some early profits from specifically leatherworking, by selling pre-abyss items and crafting heavy knot-hide leather, as well as armor kits, and also by selling jewel crafting gems, and as I unlock more recipes and patterns, and designs, I expand the amount of items I can craft and therefore also expand my profitability. For alts though, I would probably pick some different professions. If I was planning on never playing the alts, I would pick alchemy and tailoring for passive cooldown crafts, because that only requires 1 login every 4 days, and you don't even need the specialization, even though it's nice to have. Alchemy is also nice simply to turn materials into consumables because of the profitability of selling consumables on raid days, based on my experiences from Classic. Simply buying materials during the weekend when everyone has more time to play, and then selling flasks and potions on raid nights is some really easy profit. If I was planning to play the alt a little bit and didn't have leatherworking on my main, I would pick leatherworking on that alt because leatherworking is nice to have for steady gold from those armor kits and crafted previous items, which are only locked behind some light reputation that is easy to obtain. So that's it for the video guys. I intentionally didn't mention herbalism, skinning or mining or stuff like that, because this video was focused for gold making and not gold farming. So gold farming is pretty straightforward, I'll get to that in a later video, but I wanted to cover gold making and crafting professions for this video. So those are the professions that I'm looking forward to. I didn't cover every single profession, I just covered the top 5 basically. So hopefully this helps some of you. If you don't have any of these professions, well, you have some time now to skill them up before TBC comes out. And that is it for the video. If you enjoyed it, leave a like on it and leave a comment down below as well. If you want more TBC content, hit that subscribe button. And that is it for the video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again very soon.